Dear electric vehicle manufacturers and mobility providers, how do you know the actual state of health of your battery in use? How do you make use of the data generated by your vehicle fleets? My name is Alwin Tuschkan and I work for AVL in the IODP department, the so-called Integrated and Open Development Platform. And our motivation is to improve the vehicle and powertrain development process. So in this video, I'm going to answer the questions. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the lifetime of a battery, and the state of health of a battery is quite difficult to estimate and even predict along the whole lifetime and the whole life cycle of the battery. So there are different electrochemical reactions ongoing in a battery cell, and this is quite difficult to estimate and to predict the future behavior. But why is it important to know that and to look at? It is important to go towards a circular economy because, of course, you want to use the battery as good as possible. And you want to extend your battery's lifetime during every phase of its life. For vehicles, for electric vehicles, for example, the battery is by far the most expensive component in the car. So that really makes sense to extend the battery's life. But therefore, you have to know all about the battery and the state of health of the battery. So to know when to react, to replace something, or start to recycle. How do we do this at AVL? Therefore, we created the battery lifecycle management approach. And I simplified this big picture for you here. So this big picture helps us not only focusing at our strengths of AVL, the whole vehicle and powertrain development process, where we are strong in development, in simulation, and in testing. It helps us to extend our focus beyond. So from materials, over the development process, over the in-use phase, and also towards reuse and recycling. And in this video, I'm going to focus on one of multiple use cases within this big picture. So within this battery lifecycle management, there are several topics and use cases where we have a look at the lifetime of a battery. And here we are going to have a look at the in-use phase. So the use case is battery analytics for vehicle fleets. Now, what do you want to know there? You want to know everything about operation strategy, and you want to optimize that. You want to know, how does my driving, charging, and even parking behavior affect the battery's life? Safety is very important. You don't want your cars running into a thermal runaway event. So knowing those things before something happens is very important. So this leads us into predictive maintenance. And then, of course, you want to reduce your costs, replacement costs, but also optimizing the utilization of your vehicles driving around. Last but not least, you want to make use and gain knowledge of the data provided by your electric vehicle fleets for your further developments. Now, how does this work? First of all, you have to collect the data. So take all the data that is available in the in-use phase from the vehicles, from different devices, and load it into a cloud. So what data am I talking about? Of course, metadata, like serial numbers of the vehicle, but also, and more important, time series data. So every data that is related to a specific point in time, like pedal position, like accelerating demand and power demand, is important. And for us, for this use case, all data from the battery itself, from all sensors of the battery, and from the battery management system is important. So when you load up these data, you recognize this is a huge amount of data. So first of all, you have to clean up and get all the rubbish out. But then still, this is a lot of data. So what we do then at AVL, we define and find specific events like charging, accelerating, recuperating, and where all those time series data is connected and related to. Now you can directly analyze this data, or you can use this data to feed models and to parameterize models, and then run those models via simulation and analyze the results out of that. So with customizable dashboards, where all the information is available, and with customized reports you can generate out of that, you can really gain profit of all the data that is available in electric vehicle fleets. Coming back to the battery and the state of health of a battery, and let's zoom in here a little bit. How is the state of health of a battery actually estimated? This is done in the vehicle on the edge. So in each battery and battery management system in the car, a pre-programmed software estimates the actual state of health. But this is based on an RC model. So those models are quite good in calculating because they're fast in calculating, but the accuracy is maybe not as good as wanted or as possible. So take all this data from all vehicles driving around, load it into a cloud, and then you can start comparing all the batteries against each other. And you can find out what is normal, where are anomalies. And you can use this data to train neural networks, for example, to have data-driven models. And having those models, already trained models, you can run those models and simulate the future behavior of each battery driving around. And that's an interesting topic I'm going into detail now. So data-driven battery lifetime prediction. And for this, I'm going to ask one of our experts in AVL, Annalena Belnarsch. She is from AVL Software and Functions in Regensburg. And she is one of our machine learning experts. And Annalena, I'm very happy to have you here and answering my questions.
Thanks, Alwin, for the very nice introduction.
So, Annalena, what do we do if we, for example, have already some data available, like in this example, a cell where a capacity curve is shown over several cycles of charging and discharging? And the question is, how can we derive the future behavior of the degradation out from historical data?
In fact, there are different methods in the literature regarding the remaining useful lifetime prediction of lithium-ion batteries. Common approaches range from mathematical and physical models to data-driven models, which also include, for example, machine learning methods or especially deep learning methods. Data-driven methods have the advantage that there is no need to explicitly model the underlying nonlinear aging processes of batteries. Some approaches in the literature predict the number of cycles until the battery reaches its defined end of life. Others go even further and predict the whole degradation curve until this point. There is one very promising method, which was published in 2021 by Lee et al. And the authors based their method on deep neural networks. They use a sequence-to-sequence architecture consisting of an LSTM encoder-decoder and achieve to predict the whole or the entire capacity degradation curve of the battery in one step. In 2022, Kröger et al. Used this method and applied it to the largest publicly available dataset of Severson et al. In the end, they achieved a prediction error of less than 1% MAPE. And that's the reason why we at AVL use this approach for a scientific investigation regarding the battery lifetime prediction of batteries. Let's have a look at the integration of our trained neural network in an operating fleet. So in our fleet, we have different electric vehicles, and each of these vehicles collects its battery health data. Afterwards, it sends the battery health data to a cloud. Here, next to an analyzation of the data, we can now use our trained neural network to infer the remaining capacity degradation curves of the batteries. And furthermore, we can even use some special data to retrain our model. And due to this, we have the opportunity to constantly retrain and upgrade our model with real-world data, and therefore also increase the accuracy of our model. To give you an idea about the model accuracy, I've brought 3 examples here. All 3 predictions are based on the same battery. It's the same battery at different points in its lifetime. And as we can see, the predictor curve, which is shown in pink here, is very similar to the ground truth curve, which is shown as the dashed green line. And this is also true for a very early prediction in the battery lifetime, which can be seen in image A, where the prediction already started after 200 cycles of the battery lifetime.
Wow, that's very impressive. So having a lot of data is basically necessary to do that. That leads to another question and another challenge. So if you're not having only one fleet driving around, there's the challenge that not every data from every fleet could be used or exchanged. For example, if one fleet is owned by one OEM versus another fleet owned by another OEM. So how do you deal with that?
That's a really good point, because to efficiently train a generalized neural network or machine learning model, it is necessary to have a large amount of variable data. So it would be very beneficial for us if we just could collect the different data of all the different fleets centrally and train one global model on top of this collected data set. But unfortunately, as you already said, it's not possible due to privacy issues. But there is already a solution, which was recently published in 2022 by Kröger et al. And this solution is based on federated learning. The authors use federated learning to collaboratively train a machine learning model for battery aging based on different electric vehicle fleets. The original paper that published federated learning as a general approach was published by the authors McMahon et al. In 2017. Federated learning is an approach for model training on distributed data. And the clue is that each participant of this training who owns one part of the data must not share their private data to any other participants or, for example, to a global server. So if we have a look at this example with the fleets, each fleet gets a copy of the model architecture and then trains locally its model on its local private data. And afterwards, instead of sending the raw data to a server, they just send the trained model parameters to the server. The server then collects the different local updates of the participants and aggregates these updates to one global update of the parameters. Afterwards, this global update is then again distributed between the different participants, and each fleet starts again its local training, proceeding from the latest global update. This whole training process is iteratively repeated until a certain accuracy is reached. So the goal is that in the end, each fleet owns a generalized model trained on the data of a lot of different fleets without the need to reveal its own data to the other participants or, for example, the server. Kröger et al. Showed that each fleet within their experiments benefited from a participation in the federated learning setup. I now brought one example that confirms this statement. All the results on this slide are based on Kröger et al. On my master thesis, and the experiments which are shown on this slide are based on 96 battery cells of the Severson et al. Dataset. So, in the first setting, we assumed the best case, in which all the data of the different fleets could be collected centrally and one global model could be traditionally trained on top of this collected data. With this approach, we achieved a prediction error of 0.7% MAPE. In the next setting, we splitted the data between two different fleets. So we had one big fleet with 90 battery cells and one smaller fleet with 6 battery cells. And training the model solely on the big fleet caused a prediction error of 1% MAPE. However, training the model solely on the smaller fleet caused a prediction error of 4.9% MAPE. As a third setting, we now combined the trainings within a federated learning setup. And with this setup, we reached a MAPE of 0.8%. So as we can see, each of the two participants, each of the two fleets benefited from a participation in the federated learning setup. Even the big fleet managed to reduce its prediction error from 1% MAPE to 0.8%. Of course, we can also see that centralized learning still has the best MAPE with 0.7%, but we can also see that the difference to federated learning is just 0.1% MAPE.
Wow, that looks really promising, Annalena. So to summarize it, having one fleet use as much data as possible and train a model. But if there are more than one fleet and several fleets where data sharing is not that easy, train every fleet separately and then make use of all the knowledge of each trained model and exchange only the learnings to provide a global update for every fleet.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you. So, if you are interested in making sense of the data provided by your electric vehicles driving around, you can use the AVL Analytics Platform. So this analytics platform does the data magic and it manages all the data for you. So you can there upload data as shown in this video from the in-use phase, from fleets or from workshops. But you can also use this platform in your vehicle and powertrain development process and use all the data you generate during the whole development process from manufacturing, from your labs, and also from prototype vehicles. Connected to this analytics platform, there are all models that are necessary and available over the whole development process, and you can now parameterize those models with all the data you can collect. And by training those models and using more data, the models get better. And also, on one hand, your battery emulation, and on the other hand, your battery prediction gets better. And this helps also to speed up the whole development process. So, what are the key benefits now by doing battery analytics for vehicle fleets? First of all, you can optimize your operation strategy of driving, charging, and even parking. It is a help to prevent failures, not running into a thermal runaway event. So very important. It helps also to do predictive maintenance. And that's cost saving. So you save lots of costs, lots of replacement costs, and also you optimize the utilization of your vehicle fleet. And last but not least, you can gather knowledge out of the data provided by the cars driving around and use this knowledge to update your development requirements for your next generation battery system or vehicle development. Let's start a project together. Let's start with a scoping workshop where we can focus on your individual needs. And please feel free to contact us. And therefore I say thank you for watching this video. And also big thank you to Annalena for having you here and answering the questions. And big thanks also to all contributors to this battery lifecycle management.